your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Well, hello world. It's Down South Anomalies here for the Untold Radio Network. My name's Joe Katz.
And I'm Aspasia.
It's episode 93. We're getting close to 100.
We are.
And I don't know if you've had the week we've had, but it was like a tsunami of change hit us.
Big time.
We have to move out of our warehouse, which we are fretting because we have so much material in here. So thousands of books. It's literally thousands of 16 millimeter films,
thousands of DVDs.
And look, if you're interested in obscure ufological 40-ana literature, keep an eye on this site because we might have to offload some material. So if you're trying to track down an old book and we have it, we are more than happy to get it into your hands for a very reasonable price. Things are changing in our life, or not.
Yes.
Okay. Well, today's episode, Aspasia, is called Extra, Read All About It. High Strangeness in the newspapers. Now,
so in the midst of this chaos that we're in, of moving out of here, trying to downsize, maybe 4 or 5 households into one.
Yeah, a warehouse.
You decided to get onto the
I decided to finally
newspapers.com.
Yeah.
And
it's a digital archive.
Researching.
It's not a physical one.
Yes, it is a digital archive.
And we have for a long time.
But you're quickly turning it into a physical one.
Oh, I've stopped printing, although I'm getting excited about printing.
Exactly. But anyway.
Look, in 1969, running through to 2010, and archived safely, thank God, to the Aquarius Project there in Switzerland, I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong there, but we will put a link to it. Was a service we actually subscribed to for a short while.
Yes, we did.
Called the UFO News Clipping Service. And it was astounding because one thing it did was cherry pick. It didn't cherry pick. It just grabbed whatever.
Yeah.
Very similar to 40 and Times that have had news clippers since day one.
That's right. What was going on.
It became like this treasury of regional and lost newspapers and cases that didn't go any further than their first news story.
That's
right. The most important thing about this is the etymology of it, that you're actually going back right to the source.
Yes.
And so you're hearing the first time these narratives were reported.
Yeah.
You're finding out about the credentials of the eyewitnesses. You're finding out about the credentials of the people that they reported it to. Was it the Air Force? Was it the police?
Yes.
But in a way, there's much more clarity.
There is.
And what it makes you realize is what we're existing in now today with the UAP and the task force and NASA's
it's
involvement.
Just too many people, too many fingers in that pie. Well, it's just gotten too muddy.
Also with the technological achievements of AI and things like that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to ascertain whether we're looking at real material or not.
Yeah.
But when you step back to the pre-internet days, the newsprint days, the cellular film days, 16 millimeter, Super 8 Standard 8.
Yeah.
Much better way to analyze the veracity of these cases.
Exactly.
And there's extraordinary stories.
I mean, we've found some stories that are like in there that are like, what? This is not right at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the majority of the stories feel absolutely right.
Yeah, but there was some, I mean, they used to get it wrong back then as well. Not as
exploitation.
Much. Well, that's right, exactly.
The notion of the media from day one.
Well, selling, the selling point, selling the sizzle. It's all about that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you got.
How are you feeling? Last week you were coughing. You had a moment of death this week.
I didn't have a moment of death. I had a moment of I don't know if it was food poisoning or some bug.
I was so worried about you.
It was about expelling from both. It was just.
Don't.
No, I know that, but that was just. It was just God. Anyway,
I think the other thing
back on board.
the other thing we don't realize too is if you go right back to Kenneth Arnold's sighting,
Mhm.
June 23, 24,
Yes,
1947, and what a year that was.
It
Dead
was.
Sea Scrolls, Roswell,
oh, it
Kenneth
was
Arnold's
all
sighting.
happening. It was all happening.
What was going on in that year?
Yeah.
And, someone needs to make a documentary about that specific year. I've got a couple of books that show the high frequency of strangeness
Mhm.
that was
Back
occurring
then.
in 1947. But if you go back there, not many of us would realize just the furor in the public
Mm.
about the fact that the anomalous objects in the skies could be real.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone started watching parties, the
Mhm.
viewing parties. They
That's
were
right.
massive across the world.
Mhm.
And reports were coming in the hundreds to the thousands.
Thousands, yes.
And you don't realize this was beyond a flap.
It was.
This was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Because I think what had happened with Kenneth Arnold's sightings, the floodgates had opened up
Mhm.
and people felt confident. They didn't feel ridiculed in the beginning to
No, they
report
didn't.
these
That's
things
right.
because
Exactly.
Arnold was a qualified pilot.
That's right.
So-
And the hairy man stories too,
Oh,
and
look,
the
the Fortean stories.
the Fortean stories, the stories of weird creatures being sighted left, right, and centre were in there as well.
So Ancestry.com, who I
Mhm.
suspect comes out of a mountain in Salt Lake City with a huge database,
Mhm.
right?
yeah,
And is desperate for all our DNA. For what reason, I've got no idea, but
Yeah.
we seek redemption in the centuries that have passed.
hmm
They have put together a site called newspapers.com, and
Yeah.
numerous researchers had been tapping us on the shoulder and saying, you need to actually go there because the
look.
search engine is profound. Again, I'm very early in the piece. I'm finding frustrations that are very similar to the gatekeepers at Wikipedia, Aspasia.
Oh,
So
look, we have to
certain-
get onto that
certain
Wikipedia.
things I go for.
There is an Australian person that has done a bit of research into Wikipedia and what's going on there, so we might get onto him and see
Okay,
what the
see if we
story
get an
is.
interview happening.
Absolutely.
But what we're
Anyway.
going to go to here to begin with is the Armadale Express. Armadale's in New South Wales.
hmm
And this is from June 27th,
Yeah.
1952. So if you're not on YouTube, you'll hear us talk about these stories, but this is very visual. And what we're
Mhm.
looking up here is the Abominable Snowman of
Of
Mount Everest.
Yeah.
This article is written by none other than Eric Shipton,
Right. Yes.
part of the Hillary Clue.
hmm
They were doing this descent during one of their ascents, taken at 19,000 feet. They came across these incredible
The footprints.
footprints.
Yes. Yeah.
And so let's have a look at that footprint. And Shipton has actually popped his pickaxe to chop the ice up right next to it.
To
And
give
so
it some.
This is the
reference.
beginning where the seeds of Bigfoot, all of it
Yeti,
just
the Yeti.
exploded.
Mhm.
Well, I think in the States, they actually initially were calling it the Abominable Snowman
Yes,
in
yes.
the States.
Exactly.
And very quickly, because in 1958, that all changed
Mhm.
with our quarry incident and became Bigfoot. But up until
In
that
58
point,
was it?
yeah, I think
right,
it was
yeah.
58. I'm not sure. Don't question me.
No, because the Patterson Gimlin tape was in 66. Yeah.
That's right, film actually. It
Yeah,
was
the
never
film.
a tape.
No,
that's
that's right.
Okay, they actually followed these footprints for more than a mile.
That's quite a
They
way
saw that it had dallianced like a ballerina
Yeah.
over a crevasse,
that they couldn't
which
get.
they went, how's anyone doing this? The first thing that actually shocked them in the early 50s,
Mhm.
Shipton, was like, this person's not wearing any shoes.
Yes, no, that's right.
You know,
That
how
was the
can this-
problem because you
how
could
can
see the
this be
toes.
possible?
Yeah, yeah. And
When-
in the snow, it's
Yeah.
like
And
your
of
feet
course,
would be frozen.
These Sherpa stories date back thousands of years.
Absolutely.
And so the Sherpas were like well aware of this. They actually spoke about two races.
hmm
One short, about 5 foot tall, and the other about 8 foot.
hmm
The shorter were far more gentle. The 8 foot one could be
A little bit more aggressive.
ferocious.
Yeah.
The most ferocious of the lot was evidently the female. They said that it fed on yaks and men.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
you know,
Okay. There you go.
but
Yaks and
it
men.
was difficult to run as opposed to the male
Why is
because
that?
of its pendulous breasts.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the reasons they brought up.
Okay. Oh, Men
Okay.
and boobs, I tell you,
Okay.
never stops.
Evidently, in Kathmandu around this time, there
Mhm.
is a story about one that had been captured,
Yeah.
became very depressed, sullen, refused to eat, died, and was buried.
Oh,
And you know, who knows? It's a very sad
that is sad.
Sasquatch story. It really is. Let's see what was happening in Australia around that time of 1947.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. We've got the Bunyip
the
hunt.
Bunyip hunt. Okay. Strange creature in the swamp.
Can you believe this?
Mm.
The Gundagai people formed parties and posses to actually find this thing. It was seen in a lake 7 miles from the town. Have I got that? Is that
What's
right?
that?
It is Gundagai.
It's Gundagai.
Yeah. More than 3 foot tall, covered in fur. It had a swan-like neck,
Right.
and its head protruded out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people have said, well, this is obviously an escaped seal, or it's
A seal with a swan-like neck? That doesn't make any sense.
Or how about this one? They said, was it amphibious sheep?
What?
Or
Okay.
a musk duck.
A musk
But
duck.
there you go, 1947, because up until that point in time, Bunyip stories were still prolific.
Yes, they were.
They died around 1950. We don't really hear about the Bunyip anymore.
Why do you think that would be?
I've got no idea.
It's just weird, isn't it?
It certainly
Trend.
dates. It dates way back in Indigenous history in our country.
Yeah.
And let me say, you know, we have to pay our respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and the elders past, present, and emerging. I got that one in with that story of the Bunyip.
Lovely.
Let's go to the Lima Citizen.
No segue, yes.
The Lima Citizen from 1960. We're going through news reports here today.
Do you want me to read that?
Extra, read all about it. Yeah, I want you to read this. Now, this is Lima, Ohio. This is not Lima, Peru.
Not Lima, Peru. Okay.
And this is an excerpt from an article that will set the post today. All right, please.
So give me the date again.
1947.
47. Okay. Since the beginnings of recorded history, unidentified objects in the sky have attracted the interest of the Earth's inhabitants. The panel noted. The term flying saucers was coined by the press 1947 when Kenneth Arnold, a Washington businessman, saw a series of what he said were 7 saucer-like objects darting about the sky.
Now, that's wrong over the Cascade Mountains. He never saw saucers. He saw actual...
It's can do so.
About
the sky can do so. Can do so said that somebody.
Yeah.
Since Arnold's sighting, the panel said the Air Force has recorded and investigated more than 6,000 case sightings at a substantial cost to the government. Although the government has continued to investigate each sighting by a respectable observer, the official notices have ranged from the flying saucers are real to an official document which said the UFOs were hoaxes, mirages, hallucinations, and mistakes by pilots.
Okay, now let me just correct myself here. This article was from 1960, and here's one of the problems I'm already having with newspapers.com is there should have been prolific articles about Kenneth Arnold's sighting.
Right.
There in June of 1947.
There wasn't?
Could not find one.
Wow.
So I had to go to other articles to preface this.
Right, okay.
Now,
that's bizarre.
That was a term, flying saucers, coined by a journalist because of the way that Kenneth Arnold was describing his sighting.
Yes.
He thought they looked like smooth rocks that were flipping over a pond.
Skipping on a pond. Yeah.
His were crescent shaped. Let's go to the next article, which we've jumped forward big time, 1997. So people can get an image on the anniversary here.
Right. Oh, yes, the 97. Yeah. Which is like 50 years.
The 50-year anniversary, and that's his daughter there, Kim Arnold, holding up a picture. As you can see, it wasn't saucer-shaped. There were 9 of them. They were crescent-shaped.
That's right, yeah.
And Roswell was evidently a bit like that as well. So that's from The Nation, the Billing Gazette, an image of Kenneth Arnold and his daughter that went on to write a book about couple of further sightings. I mean, at the time, Ray Palmer,
Mhm.
who I believe Dr. Dean Bertram was calling the father of ufology in his new documentary,
Mhm.
The Man Behind Fate magazine, and so many other exciting, beautiful publications.
Absolutely.
He teamed up with Kenneth Arnold. He got
Right.
Kenneth Arnold to investigate for him as well,
Mhm.
the Maury Island incident, but he teamed up and wrote a book, The Coming of the Flying Saucers,
Right.
very early in the piece.
Mhm.
Let's go now to 1947's Oakland Tribune.
Yeah.
And this will tell you exactly what was happening in terms of, like, this was out of control. Once Kenneth Arnold had let that cat out of the bag,
Yeah.
the floodgates
Finger out
were
of the
open.
dike. It was pouring.
Yeah. So, as you can see there, the headline is Switchboards Loaded as Saucer Reports Pour In.
Yeah.
This is quite astounding because what it states in this article, and that image too was filmed by the staff. It flew in the window. It was very bizarre when you're
So it says descriptions of strange objects are at variance.
Police,
Mhm.
newspaper officers.
Yeah.
They were being flooded with phone calls, tens of phone calls on a daily basis.
Right.
So that image on the screen there
Mhm.
flew in the window to their cynical staff, flew in the window and flew back out. Was very small, but was very bizarre.
Right.
It was like another one of those moments, that photo that we were showing years ago in that production office in the Cross.
Oh, yes.
And it was like, what in the hell is that? But there
Mhm.
was a sign to actually say, hey, watch what you're saying, people. Things could actually get a hell of a lot
Yeah.
stranger.
Mhm.
Let's go to the Democrat, which is highly incredible, and Chronicle for 1947. Very timely. Most of the US sees airships. So you can see.
Or air discs, it says there. Yeah.
The hotspots there
Okay, they've got
are
a map up.
Portland and
Mhm.
Louisiana.
Mhm.
Portland was out of control in 1947. I don't know what was
I
happening
think
in
Portland's
Oregon.
always a bit,
Yeah.
little bit.
But you can also see in this article, and you won't see it clearly on the screen there,
Mhm.
but you're starting to also get what's bleeding into the press, which I'm sure is coming from the military-industrial complex
Mhm.
and the intelligence agencies, is, even though this thing is out of control, let's give them double-sided messages.
Well,
Let's confuse their thinking a bit,
Mhm.
and let's say, look, it still could be rather
Something
prosaic,
else, yeah.
even though we're taking thousands of calls every day.
Mhm.
It also states that these reports are not denied by scientists. So it's quite an incredible
So
article.
science was still on board.
1947, the next one is the Reno Gazette.
Mhm.
Flying saucers seen by pilots. Well, as we've stated, 1947, early in the piece,
Yep.
you can't get more credible eyewitnesses than pilots, trained pilots.
Well, that's what they do, isn't it? They
Commercial
fly
pilots,
around up
test
there all the
pilots.
time. They know what
Also,
looks like
they
what.
have radar. They
Mhm.
have vision.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
have numerous ways of capturing this evidence in a credentialed way.
Mhm.
So it speaks about a United Airlines crew, a VAL pilot, co-pilot. It
Mhm.
also speaks about 60 picnickers at Twin Falls Park in Idaho.
Right.
The police, reporters, they saw silver discs again in Portland. It speaks about that. So here you have this incredible
Multiple witnesses.
veracity.
Yeah.
Very credible witnesses, high officials in council and government and the military
Mhm.
stating that they're seeing these things en masse. We're going to the Singleton Argus from 1947, primarily Australian newspapers.
Mhm.
At this stage, we will have a sprinkling of others. But as you can see here in this small headline, you won't be
Yeah.
able to read the print.
Watch kept for flying saucers. American, what is it?
Starla.
Starts craze in
Australia. So what they're talking about there is Kenneth Arnold
Yes.
had ignited a firestorm in the world.
That's right.
But they actually make mention here from the US about, wow, the Australians have really grabbed this ball and
Gotten on
run with
board.
it.
Yeah.
So they've kept a watch. Vigilante groups were coming up to watch the skies. They were doing nightly vigils.
Night watches, yeah.
All around the world. So, and in the midst of this, they speak about a young science student from Mossman
Mhm.
who stayed up on one of these vigils a lot longer than the rest of the people with him.
Yeah.
And he managed to witness a tear-shaped anomaly
Teardrop, right. Okay.
appear over the skies of Mossman. which
Okay.
is a suburb here in Sydney, Australia.
Northern Sydney, yeah.
Okay, the Albuquerque Tribune.
Okay.
Read this one for us.
Okay, flying
Asprey.
saucer acrobatics over city reported. 2 more discs were reported over the city today. David Peterson, Beach Road, an employee of the Fox Light Drug Company, said he saw the discs at 12:15 p.m. today. The first disc swooped down out of the sky and rolled around and disappeared in the east, he said. The other disc was headed north. It made loops in the sky and was real shiny and made acrobatics before it rolled away.
Okay, well, in 1947, there is no drones. There is nothing that can do those sorts of maneuvers.
Maneuvering,
We are looking at something beyond our notion of what science
Well,
was
beyond
at the
our
time.
capacity at the time.
So, a fascinating little statement there. Now we're going to the Goulburn Evening Post
Okay.
for the July 8th Roswell recovery.
So
Right.
Goulburn is Melbourne.
Okay, so look at this here. This article is very interesting in many ways. I don't know if you can actually see this on your screen.
Okay,
You might
so
have to
it's-
blow it up. But,
Flying saucer caught. US Air Force say they have one.
well, here we go. They're telling us they have one.
Yeah.
But where is it? It's in Roswell, not Roswell.
What's Roswell?
Roswell is a misspelling.
Oh, right,
Now,
okay.
I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Just a misprint. They're dealing with information they don't know. And then I rolled down to the gentleman we recorded the last interview with in the world for Double J in the 90s,
All right.
Lieutenant Walter Holt,
yes.
who did the press release.
Mhm,
And his
yes.
daughter is in charge of the Roswell Museum
That's
there
right.
in Roswell today.
Yeah. Mhm.
Talked to Don Schmidt about this, but this might be an important misprint. They have actually spelled his name wrong. They call him Warren Holt. Now, I can't help but feel this may have been purposeful
Right.
disinformation to lead researchers astray at the time.
Okay.
Roswell
Because if
and Warren Holt. How did you
because-
get those two things
because
wrong?
if you put in, if you put into the search engine the wrong spelling or anything wrong, it won't bring it up.
Oh, it won't.
So that
But
makes it
this
really
is
difficult.
prior to search engines.
Yeah.
This is maybe trying to throw people off, but it's an interesting couple of misspellings.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure there's more in that article.
They're pretty major
It
misspellings,
goes
aren't
through
they?
and says they have one. It's we're keeping it top secret. It's being handed over to Army
Well,
intelligence.
clearly.
And then all of a sudden, in that bottom caption,
Yeah.
weather balloon.
Right.
So
All right,
they're
yes, you
already
can see that.
starting to debunk it.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Albuquerque Journal.
Albuquerque, yeah.
Here we go.
This mystery is solved for 3 hours until Roswell find collapses.
That's a load of crap.
Sources
It was-
appear over Australia and South Africa.
Well, how interesting is that? What a double-sided
Yeah,
message
yeah,
is
yeah.
that? And the 3 hours is a load of rubbish. It was a lot longer than that.
Of course it
before
was,
they
yeah.
actually swung that story around. It was
Yeah.
literally, at least 12 hours. So already we're seeing here in the press contradiction
Yes,
in
yes,
terms
we
of
are.
the information,
Mhm.
misspelling, misdirection.
Yeah.
This is 1947, folks.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
2024.
yeah.
All right, let's have a look at how much fever had caught on
So
it.
what's the one down the bottom there? Saucer is reported seen near Mora.
I think that must
That's
be
another one there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
is that an island in the South Pacific?
I don't know. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
we'd have to check that. I should
Flying
have checked
saucer
that.
has been reported sighted over Mora. NM Bradley F.P. Chris Jr. and Richard O.
You're
Branch
confusing me here,
Jr.
As, but I have
were
read that
the-
story. It gives you no more
Oh,
clarity.
okay. All
Okay.
right. No
So
problem.
stop wandering off on your own tantrums here. Let's
You
go.
mean tangents, not tantrums.
All
Anyway.
right, okay.
Okay. All right. Where are we now?
We're looking at the
Ooh.
girls from the Flying Saucer Watch Club.
Okay. Watchers from Club.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who we have there is Betty Dean,
Mm-hmm.
Billy Sue,
Yep.
Billy Jean,
Bobby Jean.
and Betty Joe. They are their names.
Is it
They're
Petticoat
all-
Junction?
They're all completely hyphen. And these girls, as
It's
part of
Petticoat
their
Junction.
centenary college students, have organised their own Flying Saucer Club.
Okay.
And they are basically, they're not interested in men. They're not interested in girls.
They're interested
in
in
what's flying
saucers.
around in the sky. As you can see them sitting there They're just waiting for activity.
Okay.
I think that's a great image, don't you?
Wow. What year was that from?
That is 1947.
My God, it was all happening then, wasn't it? That's the free press.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's go down to Australia's Daily Telegraph
Oh,
out
yeah.
of Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
And the experts say flying saucers are not imagined, which is an incredible statement for its time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what they're saying here, March 1950, they speak about Italy's leading turbojet expert, Giuseppe Belloso,
Uh-huh.
said that Germany and Italy had developed these craft in 1942,
Right.
and they had developed them as weapons. This is just not anybody. This guy was the minister of the economy
Mhm.
underneath Mussolini.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
he's making that
Big guns.
statement. And they also bring in a New York senator, Clinton Anderson,
Mm-hmm.
that said these craft are a reality and probably a direct product of the US's atomic program.
Okay.
So here's all that material going, well, was there, and I've always been highly skeptical
Mm-hmm.
of the notion, even with the Bell and Joseph Farrell's work and stuff, was there a valid
Right.
Nazi flying saucer program?
Sure.
Because if there was, why
Mhm.
didn't they implement that?
Exactly.
And now we'd be living under, well, not that different a regime, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Anyway, highly credentialed pilot witnesses' testimony is in this article as well.
Yep.
And you've got a young boy on the right-hand side there at the Australian Museum looking at, I think it's, something that's been pickled in the tube there. Let's hope it's not the thylacine. All right, let's move on to the next slide.
Yeah.
What's that cough?
Sorry.
That was so loud then.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're getting over it, though, aren't you?
It's just a bit of residual,
Okay, 1950, April 1950.
Okay, sorry.
That residual is getting out
Yeah, I
of
know.
control. Amazing discovery made in the Australian Patent Office of 6 basic patents that date back to 1930
Okay.
of vertically hovering and circular craft.
Okay.
So 6 patents were placed with the Australian Patent Office in 1930 for what looked like possible flying saucer
Interesting.
craft. Probably turbojet, which is nothing like we've seen. They're going to make a hell of a sound, and they're not what eyewitnesses have seen. Keep going down there.
I am.
As per see, you're
I'm
slow.
moving it.
Okay. How about this one? Navy man's startling flying saucer theory.
Now I'm having a sneezing fit.
All right. 2 Australian airmen sighted UFOs over Canberra, one of the most reliable sightings ever in Australia.
Really?
This
Why is that?
actual report. US Navy has tracked
Okay.
UFOs with special equipment designed to actually take images of atmospheric missiles.
Okay. That's why.
And so they were utilizing this equipment and they were able to track these things, record them at very high speed. So I'd say brilliant for analysis.
Mhm.
He tripped one of these commanders. His name was Robert McGavin, and he decided that he sort of understood what we are looking at and came up with a whole sort of series of schematics and images that you can see there
Yeah.
about the craft. It was elliptical in shape, 100 meters in diameter,
That's pretty big.
and he was entirely convinced that it could not have been piloted by a human being because the G-forces alone
Right.
would have flattened that person.
Wash them.
Keep moving quickly
Moving.
onto the Warwick Daily News,
Oh,
1951.
here we go.
Strange sea creature. Well, this is what we have been
What's the
discussing.
shore in?
The
Yeah.
Tanner,
Taniwa?
we remember
Taniwa.
we brought that up.
Yeah, we did.
with
we
Mr.
did.
Healy and
We
numerous
did,
other
we did.
researchers, our French researchers.
So that was a strange sea creature washed ashore in New Zealand.
30 foot in length.
Wow.
It had a head that was evidently 3 feet across, narrow tapering tail, and one massive trunk tusk
Right.
that came out of the front of it that looked like a trunk and had a very leather body.
Right.
And you know what they did? It did die, and then they went and buried it in the school. Can we actually get to someone that will liberate it from that school?
Yeah.
Keep moving, Asper. See,
Okay.
time-wise. Okay, let's go to Luna Park,
flying saucer at Luna Park.
which is Coney Island.
And
it's up for sale at the moment for $70 million.
Is that all? That's pretty cheap.
It's pretty astoundingly cheap, actually. So it has been there since the 1920s, 1930s.
Yeah.
It had some very mysterious things happen. There was a time where it was closed down. They had a fire in the ghost train and numerous people lives were taken. Very shocking.
So what year was that from?
That's
52. So flying saucer at Luna Park. Ride the only flying saucer in captivity. It's a terrific new thrill. Watch or ride the sensational Roto 2. Open nightly special children's matinee, 1:30 today. Free gifts to first 500 children. Band promenade concert Sunday afternoon and evening. Tram and train, all train to Milson's Point, ferries number 6, Circular Quay.
You don't have to read it all. That's
free. It's free. Never. It's not free now. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Gorilla or hairy man.
Okay, this is
Can kind of be both. Bit of both.
Yes. 1952, coming out of Wellington. They're actually seeing
in New Zealand, right? The hairy man
Bigfoot over there.
Yeah.
Evidently, because it was breaking into camps, it was making incredible sounds, and they came across caves that were massive boneyards.
Right.
That they actually put down to this creature.
Okay.
You've got one job to do. Can you do it?
I can do it. Okay. The Newcastle Sun, 1953.
All right. So this is about a Swiss mathematician and meteorologist who said that flying saucers will actually ignite World War III. And at this stage, they are controlling the weather. And this was years before global warming. I mean, this person was kicking it all off.
Yeah.
And basically said, since the detonation of the atomic bomb and Kenneth Arnold's sightings, the weather has turned absolutely extreme.
Right, okay.
And they are creating atmospheric conditions to drive humanity to the point of war.
Right. Well, you can't let off nuclear bombs and not expect some sort of fallout.
Frank Scully actually discussed it. That was one of the reasons behind his book.
Yeah.
Traced Cause of Flying Saucers. So this is the British War Office.
The Central Queensland Herald this is from.
Yes.
Yep.
So London, you can see that.
Yes.
British War Office recognising flying saucers as a reality in 1953 because their pilots had witnessed it. They were using a theodolite. They can't deny its existence.
Right.
Keep it moving.
Okay. All right, I'm moving. Oh, so this is the Sydney Morning Herald.
From 1953,
yeah,
Kathmandu at an altitude of 14,000 feet, they actually...
A Yeti or one of its relations killed.
By one of the local Rajahs,
really?
Actually got his men to actually corner this thing because it was taking yaks on, a frequent basis. Got very upset. They cornered it, tried to actually kill it by concussing it with stones and rocks. Ended up shooting it in the air. They reckon it had a face like a bear.
Yeah, and human feet.
Yeah.
I believe to be a close relative of the abominable snowman.
Thank you. I love the way you pronounced that, then. It was rather cute. Keep it rolling.
I'm rolling.
How about here? Here we go.
1954, the Daily Telegraph, which is an Australian paper.
Yes, it's a Sydney paper.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm stating.
This is Michael Nugent of Engadine.
Okay, he's building a flying saucer.
He is the first person in the world to construct a flying saucer, he states.
Right.
Now, all he's been able to do is invest $2,000, which must have been a huge amount of money in his day, into a model. It's not even a prototype, right?
Oh, okay.
He's seeking an investor with at least $1 million, right?
At least, yeah.
And he will be able to take you to the moon, Mars,
and back,
and resolve it all. Forget SpaceX.
Okay,
this guy in 1953,
he was on the
suburb of
That's near the national park.
A bit, savaged by the weather down here. Can you believe that?
I believe it. I
love that story.
He just couldn't find an investor.
You know what? I'm going to try and track down his relatives and see what happened with that story.
Maybe he's still around.
Remarkable. Yeah, he could be. Could be. Okay, let's go to the next picture.
Okay.
It's a young 15-year-old boy who got his first camera, and
this is in the San Bernardino.
Yes.
country.
Okay. And within, can you believe this?
Youth sights films strange object in sky.
And this guy basically took that incredible picture of that object.
Yeah.
Within 10 minutes of owning this camera. It was the
Wow.
first shot he'd ever taken on the camera.
Amazing.
So what an incredible story. Keep it rolling.
Okay. The next one is the Barrier Miner, 1954.
What about this story?
Fanged animals caused alarm to rubber men.
Okay, well,
What?
that's really interesting because you could
What the
think,
hell's
oh
that?
my God, are we stepping
going
into
on
the
there?
deep nightclub scenes of the
S&M,
Hellfire
the
Club?
S&M.
No, but it's not. 1953, 3 fanged creatures come out of the dense jungle of northern Malaysia
Right.
on Christmas Day and frighten the hell out of rubber tappers.
Oh, I see. Rubber men. Okay,
So,
got it.
so they were half human, half ape. But the freaky thing was they had these massive fangs.
Yeah.
That were actually there when their mouth was closed.
Okay, they could see
So
them. Ooh,
maybe
sounds like
this
an
was-
Eddie Romero film.
It does. Philippines, Malaysia, relatively close. And maybe that was the family initially scalping for locations of the Blood Island films.
Maybe.
But that is one wild story.
It is a wild story.
And, evidently heaps of eyewitnesses at the time.
Okay.
Let's
There you
just
go.
keep it rolling.
We're rolling.
Okay. This is the
Sydney Morning Herald. Yep.
Yeah, this is in Adelaide.
Yep.
This whole town
Spaceship query
had been
in SA
subjected
Township.
to non-stop high strangeness.
Okay.
So here's the interesting thing.
What's that?
All of a sudden, we had a rocket testing range here in Woomera,
Yes.
which had some very bizarre anomalous incidents that have been brought up through the FOIA releases and stuff. They are there in the frigging 50s questioning people. The CSIRO and people from Woomera out of nowhere just appeared literally overnight because this town was seeing things on a daily basis with multiple eyewitnesses. And we do have these windows of high strangeness. Broken Hill, where Mad Max was shot on the Money plane. I've spent time out there for the ABC doing my documentary To Catch a Flying Star. Believe me, it is one window of high strangeness. Going back to the possibility that there could have been a Nazi flying saucer program.
Oh, yes. Germans flew saucers in 1942, exile claims.
Here's another story from a completely different witness there in the 1950s. So these stories just won't go away, Aspasia.
They don't. They just keep coming hard and fast.
All
What is
right.
that? The Ozan Kadnook tiger.
Okay, we're
What is
talking
that?
about the thylacine, the
Okay.
Tasmanian tiger.
Okay.
And eyewitness reports throughout South Australia
Mhm.
and into the tablelands here in New South Wales.
Yeah.
And your son actually witnessed the
He
thylacine.
did. He did. He knew what he was talking about when he saw that
Well, he's
thing.
had a good education with us.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay, here we
Elusive
go
creature
again.
in New Zealand bush.
Yep.
Man or gorilla.
Yeah, well,
know.
there you go. And they're having a very difficult
They're
time
having
trying to
trying to
ascertain
work out
what in
what's
the hell
what.
it was. And this is primarily really early in the piece in
Yes.
terms of like coming up with names like Bigfoot.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had been around
Yeah.
for a much longer time here in Australia, but I don't think the white population had really triggered to it. Now, this story out of the 50s is by a journalist reporting on a story that came through Pravda, and it's in Berlin.
Right.
And it's basically one of the most astounding eyewitness cases of entities and a landed object. And you
Right.
can see there in that
It's an
image.
interesting image,
It's
isn't
a
it?
very
Yeah.
fascinating landed object. Just keep rolling through
Okay.
these.
Flying ghosts.
Well, flying ghosts for again another term early in the piece for UAPs.
That's
or
from
flying saucers
1954 in the
in a-
Advertiser.
Yep,
In
yeah,
Adelaide.
yes, keep rolling.
I'm rolling. Okay.
Soviet claims spaceship. Now, the space race is running parallel. We're a little bit early for that, but we're getting close to it. Here are the fears
1954,
coming out of the West
Right.
that the propaganda coming from the USSR, from behind the Iron Curtain,
Yep.
is basically stating we're not only going to get a Sputnik up there,
Yeah.
we're going to solve interplanetary travel.
Well, that didn't
Something
happen,
we're
did
all
it?
trying to see is happening right now.
Here we are, 2024, and we're still back there.
Now, let's go to Sacramento from 1947. 39 states report discs. How about that?
Mm.
And at the same time, the contradictory information. It all may just be tricks played by the eyesight. And we're talking about multiple mass hallucinations. Here is the Yarralumba estate. Estate.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that they are actually being, this is where the Governor General actually used to be here in New South Wales.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's part of an incredible vineyard orchard
Yeah,
area.
it is.
They were
Yarralumba wines.
They were actually going through multiple, endless incidents of Indigenous ghosts
Oh, really?
on the property.
Okay.
And so where we're moving to, we're actually in Wellington. We'll be actually able to check that out with our equipment. That could be happening there as well. Here we go to 1970, very early in the piece, from Searchlight, the newspaper. And it's
Will
about
the computer corner Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Clearly not.
Well, come on.
Well, here we
We've
are.
got-
This is 1970. Here we are, 2024, and still haven't cornered him.
So this guy, instead of feeding coordinates like our brilliant program that's ended up on mapping Bigfoot on Untold Radio, he had something like 78 questions, that he was going to get out there to people.
Uh-huh.
And now the next story comes from 1970, which is just astounding.
Wisconsin State Journal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Astounding. This is 6 years before Bill Casing's book, We Never Went to the Moon. And people were claiming skepticism over the landings back then.
Yeah.
Now, in one of these articles, one of the most hilarious things is they had a roving reporter like Alan Wicker that went around the barriers in New York, and there was a mother doing a washing, and she's going, listen, I've got a major problem with television transmission here from your towers just a little bit upstate, a few miles away. You think I'm going to believe they're sending a picture from the moon? And there were great pragmatic moments like that.
I tell you what, people, hey?
Especially up in Harlem and those areas, the majority of African Americans go, this is
of course.
Now, I'm not saying it's
no, but that's what they would have been saying.
But historically, people are going to say Bill Casing is the first time it was articulated.
No.
It was not.
It was way before then. Okay.
Well,
back to, where are we now? What year?
This again is in the early 50s.
Herald, a bumper year for flying saucers, say experts.
Yeah, I mean, this is this
doesn't
worldwide
stop.
flap. Let's go again to the moon hoax. This is from 1977, a year after Bill Casing. No mention of Bill Casing, but this journalist here, Steve Devol.
He
is desperate to actually follow up on this. He actually, by the end of the article of reading this, you realize this guy is hooked.
Right.
He really believes something's going on.
Right, okay.
And he's going to start doing research. So I'll follow up the leads on him.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we go to the great Rex Gilroy. One of the fathers of anomalous cryptozoology in Australia and ufology.
So on the trail of the abominable Yowie. Yeah. The Good Weekend.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so Rex's books are still out there. You should look them up, especially Mysterious Australia. Okay, can you read us this one?
Bay pilot tells of UFO sighting. Port Phillip Bay pilot Mr. Frank Jolly believes he saw an identified
Jolly West.
No, saw an unidentified flying object over his Brighton home on Sunday. Mr. Jolly 50 said yesterday that on Sunday he was sunbaking in the backyard of his home when he saw something pass overhead about 2:45 p.m.
He said he first thought this was a big bird, but when he saw it was oval-shaped, he believed it was a balloon. But then he realized the wind was blowing the wrong way for the object to be a balloon or a kite. See all this deductive thinking here? Mr. Jolly said that the object flying at 4,000 feet gradually lower and disappeared behind his house. It seemed to be about 18 meters in diameter.
It's a big balloon.
Mr. Jolly said he was skeptical about UFOs, but I've thought about it a lot since it happened, and I just can't put another explanation on it. Mr. Jolly reported his sighting to the RAAF, something that years later people would stop doing because of ridicule.
Yes.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I hit it. Oh, okay. Aussie UFOs in film epic.
Now, Michael here.
Who?
Michael Hervey.
Okay.
He wrote the book UFOs over the Southern Hemisphere, UFOs over America. Here he is stating to do an incredible documentary. He also discusses the fact that not Spielberg, but Richard Dreyfuss
was going to direct.
The director of
Oh, they really got that
of
story wrong,
Jaws,
didn't they?
And
Yeah.
he's now going to direct an incredible film, which I'd say is Spielberg doing Close
Close
Encounters
Encounters,
of
yeah.
the Third Kind.
Mhm.
We have the tyranny of distance, people. Stories can, like Chinese whispers,
Can change
get
a little bit.
confused and get all over the place.
Absolutely.
So quite
Yeah.
amazing to actually come across that.
Okay, Fallon.
Now, this is for
this
you.
is- this
All
is-
right. And this is where we end today, because this is just a brief episode. We're in the midst of incredible change. We're going to get some great interviews happening really soon. We're going to keep them under wraps till next week.
Well, until they
But
happen.
we wanted to show you that it is worthwhile, even though it's a tiny bit exy at around $100 Australian.
Every 6 months.
Probably $50 US.
No, it's not.
For people.
It's not. It's hours of fun, I can tell you.
Oh, look, you
Keeps
can spend
you-
your life
keeps you
on there.
entertained,
Yeah, but I get
absolutely.
very frustrated because there are gatekeepers. Where are those Kenneth Arnold stories?
Well,
where are
where's
those
the
Roswell
You
stories?
did. So tell. You,
Maybe
you
I
did-
need to look at the filters.
I don't know.
And expand. I'm not sure. It's early days for
Well,
me
if you
going
put-
on to newspapers.com.
Well, if you put UFO in or, flying saucer, you'd think the first thing that would come up was the Roswell, because we've all seen that the press release.
Out of the Roswell Daily Record.
And that did not come up, which
And
was
look,
really bizarre.
This story was worldwide. So I'm
Absolutely.
going to check on Travis
Yeah,
Walton.
yeah,
I'm going to check on Valenti.
and see what happens.
But it is, if you have a problem, you're feeling slightly bored, go to newspapers.com.
Yeah.
Look, a friend of ours, Greg Turkington, who is actually the president of the only official Frank Sinatra Jr. fan club in the world, has been going on there and getting all the original ad mats and venues that Frank Sinatra Jr. played at. And he was doing 2 or 3 dates a week.
Exactly.
And putting them together in books, taking them to like an Office Works in the state and giving them to the Sinatra
published.
family. Dancing people. So it is a great way to actually search out anything
that you're interested in.
But this little news item I came over.
Yeah.
This is going to become a program you're going to research.
That's
and
right.
Put
That's
together.
going to be my
So
program.
tell us about this.
Okay, so the Colbys was a spin-off of Dynasty.
Tell us what Dynasty was.
Well, Dynasty was, the first, I don't know what you can call it. It was just this soap, nighttime soap that came to the TV screens about the rich and famous and the, overly privileged and overabundance, blah, blah, blah. And that's where, Alexis Carrington, who was Joan Collins, came back as a star because she was a starlet in her day, but then she was an older woman.
She'd done those films, The Bitch in the Stud in the 70s.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So in the 80s, she became Alexis Carrington, the super bitch of nighttime. She was of nighttime television.
Okay, fair enough.
So it was a battle between Alexis Carrington and Crystal Carrington, Anyway, so the Colbys was a spin-off of that. Fallon was the daughter of Alexis. And look, one night, I think it was in the second season of the show.
Yeah, it's the closer.
The ending, the series of that series finale. Fallon gets in a car. She's had a fight with her husband and drives off.
Now, there's not any anomalous or 40
No. There's nothing weird or strange about this show. It's just about rich people and their minutiae, right?
Okay.
And so all of a sudden, Fallon gets in her car and drives out into the desert. She's distraught because she's had an argument. And then all of a sudden, the car starts, the wiring, the radio,
vibrating,
the wipers, everything starts going crazy. The whole car shuts down in the middle of this highway. And then all of a sudden, this light appears over the top of her and then just lands. And it's a saucer. It's a flying saucer.
Oh, my God.
She gets out of her car and walks into it. And that's the finale of that season.
Oh, of the entire series.
But they didn't know that was going to be there. Then it got cut. I think
this is.
Do you think they knew that it was going to be?
I think here it says that the producer, Aaron Spelling, might have gone, okay, they've cut this season. I'm going to slam this episode in there. That's still an assumption.
It is. I don't know, because I think it was supposed to come back, but then it didn't. It didn't get renewed for the third season. That was a second season ending. And then of course, she and her husband went back to the to Dynasty because she didn't disappear, but there was no mention except for one time about this traumatic thing that she went through.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? And so I was like hanging. I was
She's
thinking,
probably got
oh my
children
God,
on another planet.
finally, the strange and weird, UFOs
Has crept into the mundane.
crept into the into the mainstream, into this series that was a drama, a soap drama,
Right.
but had no weirdness about it. And all of a sudden, this high weirdness came into it. But then there was no mention of it after.
So this little piece here
yeah.
from the 80s out of a TV guide in the States, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to close the second season of his rookie soap, The Colbys, spun off from Dynasty when Jeff and Fallon Colby, John James and Emma Sams moves to California. Producer Aaron Spelling sent Fallon speeding along a desolate highway. Her car broke down and, frightened by bright lights in the sky, she looked up to see a UFO landing in front of her. No joke. She boarded and flew it off, taking the last vestiges of the show's dignity with it. The Colbys wasn't renewed for a third season, and while the storyline was given a second chance when Fallon and Jeff returned to Dynasty, it was eventually forgotten.
Deservedly so.
I don't think
it was. I think
it needs to be brought up. I think it needs to be a whole new reawakened
that
series
should have
on
been
Netflix.
a new line, of the series going into this whole scenario, this abduction scenario back then. It would have been amazing.
This has brought up a research point for you, and you keep threatening me that you're going to do a show for Untold Radio.
I am,
but you're not getting to it.
I haven't, but I will do it once. You know me. It's about. I've got to get into a certain mindset. And once I get in there, then it's full steam
Love
ahead.
and marriage.
And I don't, that becomes my whole thing.
Really?
Do you know what I mean?
Does it?
So yeah, it does. You know how obsessive I can get about stuff.
But
scary. I just got to get there. I'm still not there, but once I get there.
So many sitcoms, so many TV
sitcoms,
the Brady
right.
Bunch,
the Brady Bunch,
all had
Frasier,
ufological episodes.
The Golden Girls, all these. Really,
they dealt with the topic. It was an important topic in the news.
But they were all like mainstream, comedy situations. There was drama in them, but there was never weirdness. But there was always this one show that was like a UFO show. It's like, why would you do that? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's all rolling along normal, not boring, but normalcy. And then all of a sudden, bang, they throw in a UFO episode.
All right.
So I'm gonna pull together a whole show on UFOs and sitcoms and how they dealt with them.
Great, I love
it. Okay, so that's coming up.
Boy, that took a while to get there, didn't it? Okay. What we're basically saying, ladies and gentlemen, if you are researching any topic,
yes,
to be able to have these algorithms now that you can basically punch in one word and scan through literally tens of thousands. And, the important thing too is regional newspapers.
Yes.
Because these stories sometimes never get further.
They never got picked up. You know, it just depended if there was, if they could really, tease it out and exploit it, they would. But a lot of the time, it just depended on the journalist too that came across that story, whether they went with it or not. And a lot of those stories never actually got picked up and went to the mainstream, got the worldwide headlines. So,
and I think it's always important to go right back to the source.
Absolutely.
If you want to understand something, see the truth and see when that source, one thing we're going to do for November is have a look at all the stories around JFK.
Yes.
Fletcher Pouty was in New Zealand at that time. Witnessed a profile of Oswald that was literally 2 hours. It couldn't have been written by a journalist.
We got the story here, didn't we?
Yeah.
The story was like...
We're going to look at all this stuff and see the contradictions in the media, the contradictions to the eyewitness reports. But this phenomena was out of control in 1947.
UFOs and the Bigfoot one,
it was but UFOs were in the media on a daily basis.
All the time.
They weren't ridiculed.
No.
They were credentialed officials. It was at fever pitch. Skywatch groups were being created all around the Western countries of the world. And all of a sudden, the dampers were put on. You can see there with Roswell, within 24 hours, they were bringing it down. And we need to pay tribute to the greatest inspiration in that, and which They have now digitally archived the UFO news clipping service.
Yes, they have.
We're going to put a link underneath for
Mhm.
you to be able to go to that
Go there
access.
and have a look.
And if you cannot afford
Mhm.
ancestries.com going into their database to be
Mhm.
classified for the rest of your life under their auspices,
Yeah.
no, that doesn't happen. But if you cannot
No,
afford
you
to
don't
go
know. You
on the
don't know.
newspapers.com,
Yeah.
you can actually go to this source from this link,
Yeah.
and there are literally thousands of reports.
Right.
It was a little higgledy.
Yeah, well, you
They were
just gotta
throwing
sort-
everywhere,
yeah,
left,
yeah.
right, and center.
Yeah.
Because what basically those snippets, those
Mhm.
clippings would come in,
Mm.
they'd be re-photostated
Yeah.
onto a page,
Yes,
and it would be shot out in a 10 to 20 page newsletter.
exactly.
And so that news clipping service since the late 60s to 2010,
Mhm.
when the internet actually took away
Yeah, yeah.
its beauty.
Oh, well.
But now we have newspapers.com.
Yeah.
Listen, I hope you found this episode interesting.
Mhm.
A bit of a gateway drug into another deeper tunnel drive.
Another rabbit
A
hole.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate Untold Radio,
Yes,
all the
we
other
do.
podcasts. We appreciate the moderators. Catherine,
Very
where's
much
Catherine?
so.
Is Catherine Four Feathers okay?
Mm.
John Ayres is coming back to the human race and being repaired. Doug and Alex, Dr. Dean Bertram, there's so many great people on this
Yeah.
station. But at the end of the day, we really appreciate those people that bother to join this crazy married couple. And we're in that transitional space, aren't we?
Yes, we
Our
are.
lives are about to change radically. But
Mhm.
one thing that won't change
Is
is this weekly
This
program.
insanity.
Yeah. It's not insanity.
It's insanity. What are you talking about?
All right. Well,
anyway,
thank you for joining us for this week's Down South Anomalies. Extra, read all about it. High Strangeness in the newspapers,
Mhm.
newspapers.com. If you've got any other interesting research trails for us to actually find,
Mhm.
if you know of some other newspaper archives that are more accessible when it comes to these very polarizing stories in the news, get in touch with us. Hit us down in the comments. We adore you. You're on Untold Radio, and we are Down South Anomalies.
we'll be back next week. Bye.